welcome to another edition of 108 Stitches Baseball Talk. We're back. But before we went on here earlier, we did a great show on NHL expansion. I was pleased. So for those of you who haven't watched that show, I had Cliff Neal on. This guy is the guru on NHL expansion. Hope everybody gets an opportunity to watch it. But meanwhile, tonight, I got my dream team back on baseball. We're talking baseball. No, don't expect me to sing because I'll break a Memorex lesson. You'll end up needing hearing aids if I start doing it. But I'm going to introduce the crew nevertheless. Eric Katz, welcome back to the big show.
Good to be back.
And Trent Clark, my brother from another mother, and my co-host.
Yes, welcome. 2026 always, or is 2026, right? Five? What is it? 2025? Fired up. I'm fired. I'm already ready for a 25, 26 season. 25 season, man. It's arrived.
Should be a fun.
Well, I don't know. What is it? 25 or 26? Tell me what year it is.
25.
It is 25. Thank you.
All right, so now what you're telling me, if it's 26, I got Alzheimer's disease. I do anyways. All right, let alone. And Mark the Barber. And I'm going to tell you, we got some good news pertaining to the Barber tonight. Mark the Barber is going to be part of the revamped Sports Exchange on Thursday night at 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. Mark goes wherever we need him. You want to talk about an MVP? Mark the Barber is it.
Me and Jalen Hurts, we do it all, right?
Yeah, that's
yeah.
Really about the Barber. He'll be on Monday nights too whenever he has time to do it. But the revamped Sports Exchange will be coming up this Thursday night and a little on going into the following week. Mark loves hockey. We're going to talk baseball on the show, among other things. Pensman, welcome back. So we got a lot of good things in the hopper today, but the topic at hand is one Eric Katz has been preaching to the choir, and he's going to get an opportunity with a little bit of information as well. And guess what, for all you hockey fans out there, we're going to talk a little bit of Four Nations as well at the back of the show. So with that said, let me get my dream team going here. Did the Boston Red Sox overpay for Alex Bregman? You know what? I have no choice. I got to go with the Cats, man.
I'll tell you what, though. All right. I thought, this Alex Bregman was one of those classic Boris clients who learned nothing from Pete Alonso and overvalued himself and ended up staying on free agency a lot longer than expected, albeit he had a qualifying offer attached to him. And nowadays, just with the way they do the MLB draft these days, these executives don't like losing draft picks because, you don't know what you can find. I mean, it's a lottery ticket, and you lose a draft pick, well, you never know. You might be able to draft another healthy Mike Trout. But, here's the thing. Boston is paying him an average annual value, deferrals not included, of $40 million a year. Prior to him signing, there were only 4 other players making that kind of money or more, and that was Shohei Ohtani, Juan Soto, Zach Wheeler, and Aaron Judge. I know right now he's tied with Aaron Judge, I believe, for average annual value. But let's be honest, Alex Bregman hasn't been an All-Star since 2019. Shohei Ohtani, Juan Soto, Zach Wheeler, and Aaron Judge you can count on for being All-Stars, if not a Hall of Famers when it's all said and done. But you go ahead and decide to give a guy who's on the wrong end of 30, $40 million a year for 3 years. That contract, if this thing backfires, that contract's going to look really bad. Plus, he ain't opting out because there is no way in hell he's going to get that same money going somewhere else because nobody else is going to pay him $40 million a year. I can guarantee you that. And let's be honest, this guy's starting to decline. You saw what happened last year. He was playing in a right-handed friendly ballpark at what was then Minute Maid Ballpark. I think the name has changed now to Dakin, although Waste Management missed an opportunity there to get the naming rights. But here's the thing. He had the Crawford boxes at his disposal. That is that is heavenly for right-handed hitters. It's the equivalent of what the short porch is to left-handed hitters at Yankee Stadium. But here he is. But he's going to Boston, and this guy is on the wrong end of his career. Now, Red Sox fans, you go ahead and accuse me of being Yankee biased, which I am not. I'd like to announce that that I am not being Yankee biased because I write about all teams, and I take a fair point of view of it. I can guarantee you, I'm not the only one saying this. And I bet you other Red Sox fans are probably saying the same thing as well. So why don't you get lost, you massholes? You're able to, you just dumped all that money, and now not only that, you got a little drama there, which just came about with Rafael Devers, and who's not removed from third base, even though the guy is a trash defender at third base. I'm talking trash, probably a worse defensive player than Pete Alonso is at first base. But he is just, you just made him the world's most expensive second baseman. There's only one guy, the next highest guy, which right now is Xander Bogaerts. If San Diego doesn't move him back to shortstop, he's making just under $26 million. Hello, you should have seen the second base bargain what the Tigers got Gleyber Torres for. They essentially got him for chump change. But there they go, the Red Sox thinking that the new age Red Sox thinking that they're all that, dumping $40 million into a guy who's declining. Heck, I'd like to note that they refuse to pay a future Hall of Famer Mookie Betts, yet they pay a guy who's on the wrong end of 30. So don't get your hopes up, Red Sox fans, because this could end up being something like what Pablo Sandoval was when he was gracing Fenway Park.
Great stuff. We have to go to the chat room because while Eric was doing his thing. All right, so now Eddie Prather, no, the length of the years is not bad. Okay, keep him going. Boston isn't stuck with Bregman long term, let alone the fact that he has 2 opt-outs in that contract. So
he's not opting out. He will not opt out.
He's not getting $40
million anywhere.
Well, exactly. No alone fact, if he gets hurt, he's not going to opt out as well. So I can say I think he'll definitely go the length of that contract for sure because of injury, let alone the fact that you just said, Eric, $40 million. I hear Devers won't switch his position either. Okay.
That's true.
Ralph Williams, hello, guys. All right, let's keep it going. Have any more in there? Let's keep it rolling. I love what we have going in the chat room. Trent, this is going to set you up real well when you get on here. As a Yankee fan, I would rather have Bregman than that bum DJ. Okay.
I mean, yeah. I never said Bregman was on the I never said Bregman was worse than DJ, and this has nothing to do with LeMahieu. I'm truthful. DJ LeMahieu is on the back 9 of his career. There's a difference, and he's already at the difference is he's been hurt. Bregman hasn't. I mean, yes, the best ability is availability, and I strongly believe that. Thanks to one George who taught me all about that. But here's the thing. You got a guy on the wrong end of 30. Yes, it's not a long-term deal, but if this thing backfires, you have 2 years of paying him Aaron Judge money.
Okay.
Well, and he's not opting out.
What we're going to do is we're going to let Trent and Mark talk about. Then we're going to go to Joshua. We have decided to incorporate Four Nations Face Off into this show. Hang on, but I have to let Trent and Mark give me their comments on Alex Bregman, and I'll follow suit. Go ahead, Trent.
Yeah, I think that it's exciting to hear that baseball is trying to make these moves. I mean, when you hear the players that are making that kind of money, Bregman is not a match in that kind of category. It's very evident. And I'm not even sure if Bregman was a match in his prime with those same players, right? So that is, to me, and I think Boston fans are relentless, man. They are not, they are realistic about who they have, and they will let everybody know, and their brother and cousin, if it's a sour deal in a hurry. And, I think when I think about the Bregman deal, $40 million, I mean, this is crazy, right? I mean, the offer is just, I can't believe the offers. We're getting in the stratosphere, right? But I can't, I was instantly reminded of like the Jerry Maguire, people don't understand the pressure that comes with $120 million. Like I have no idea, but this guy who opts out on a guaranteed contract for $40 million a year, he's not opting out. Like they are going to be stuck for 3 years. The hope is that, Boston's got the wall and it's a short porch and he's going to make a big comeback. But man, this is betting on a lot of potential, man. I do not understand at this age, that kind of money, you don't bet that money on potential. You bet that money on proven reliability. And I don't, it's no match for me. Listen, Red Sox Nation, man, I hope all the potential hits and you get a winner out of it, but I don't see it.
All right, Mark, go ahead.
I was going to say maybe they felt the pressure to sign somebody at this point, like to compete from that perspective, because, Toronto did some signings. The Yankees getting rid of Soto was the greatest thing they could have done, because they reestablished that team a million times over, and it made them so much better. So maybe, Baltimore has done a pretty good job of getting some people to help them. Not great, but better. Maybe they felt that pressure, and that's why they went after a guy like that, and they were willing to pay that kind of money. What is it, Fenway Sports Group that owns those guys? Yeah. They don't really have a problem with spending money, because they also own the Pittsburgh Penguins. Don't they own Liverpool as well, or they sell Liverpool?
They own Liverpool. They own a racing team. I know they're trying to get a basketball team.
So, like that's chump change to them, and they probably felt like they needed a marquee player to bring in. Let me ask you guys a question. Do you think this was a great year of free agency? Do you think there were a lot of guys out there, other than a couple top tier guys, that really were worth the money? Let's put it that way.
You know what? Yeah. That's a great question, Mark. And I'll tell you, let me give you my comments on Bregman first. I want to go over some numbers, and I think that's a great follow-up, Mark, so bear with me for a moment, okay? Bregman was offered by the Astros 6 years, $156 million. Not bad if you can get it. But the Detroit Tigers offered him 6 years, $171.5 million. By the way, through Chris Ilitch, not Mike Ilitch. So that means Chris is willing to spend a little bit of money, let alone the fact he tasted the playoffs with A.J. Hinch. The Cubs, 4 years, $120 million. Well, I can see where that. And the Red Sox, 3 years, $120 million, let alone there are 2 opt-outs, which, as Trent said, he's going to opt out anyway, because at $40 million, you got to get that anywhere for a guy, as Eric would say, north of 30 years of age. So the reality of the situation is, do I think that the Boston Red Sox overpaid for Alex Bregman? No doubt about it. Again, who mentioned there? Mookie Betts couldn't get that kind of money, and all he did was win a ring over at LA. Then again, they all do when they go and spend that kind of money anyways. So all you guys really nailed this topic really on point. Now, Mark, what was the second part of your question? So I can.
My point was, other than a couple top tier guys, was this really a good batch of free agent players worth the money?
I would say average. I'm not going that high.
Depends on the positional group.
Yeah, I would say average. I think you'll get more out of the trade market than you will free agency, and I'm sure there'll be some trades made before the end of spring training. Trent, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's a below level year. The money was big, and it just feels like a big overpayment year. And I really like where the barber went on this. Maybe that is the deal. Maybe there's hometown pressure, like, hey, look, we did something. But man, people overpay for companies. They overpay for dinner. They overpay for homes. We overpay for everything. You start getting emotional and falling in love with stuff. It's usually bad business. Now, with Fenway Sports, they've built a ton of equity in sports teams. They know what they're doing. I have full faith that they know what they're doing, but I am shocked by the number. And I think this is not an Ohtani, a Trout, you think about your best in the league that are out there free, where there's going to be this big money. I'm shocked at the money this offseason, given the talent. I think there's no match. I think there's a massive gap between that ceiling on the money and the talent they're getting for it. And I think people are going to look back and go, man, those dudes came out in the right year in free agency, because that's unbelievable what they got. How do you move forward from this, by the way? How do you move forward from this? You're like, answer me that, Catsy. If Trout comes up next year or the year after, what's he going to get, 75? I mean, granted, he's injured all the time, but I don't know if we're paying attention to the stats anymore, because, like you said, Bregman's not sitting there with world beater statistics here. So does it matter?
I don't think so. Just given that we're seeing guys just the salaries have just exploded for even average players. Heck, we've seen the pitching market become so bloated that you're seeing guys like, has-beens like Frankie Montas making not too bad money for a 1-year deal, including when he went over to, I think, the Cincinnati Reds, where I think he got 15 or 17 million just for 1 year, which for a 1-year deal for a pitching market, that is pretty good for someone who's been a has-been. And there's also, I think, just now the salaries are exploding. MLB shattered a revenue record this year, and the money is there. The problem is, especially with a lot of teams, owners just are unwilling to spend it. So the money is plenty there, and the players know it's there. So push comes to shove, you gotta load the boat. I think Willy Adames, who's never been an all-star, still a good player. Don't get me wrong, still a good player, a guy you want in your lineup, power hitter, generally a good defender, with the exception of last year. But for the most part, he is. He got $210 million for 7 years from the San Francisco Giants. That's pretty outrageous for a guy who's never been on an all-star team before. Still a good player, but to me, he's probably worth, given what he's put up, probably 150, 180, maybe around that range.
Okay, let's move on. I know we
can I jump in with one more thing?
Absolutely. Please? Go ahead, Marco.
So I'm thinking about this, and I'm wondering, and you're deeper into it than I am, Eric, especially that you write so much about it. But are we looking at a potential lockout strike type of thing coming up in 27?
Yes, and here's why.
Well, all right, that's a good comment, but I'm going to use that as a topic later on. But that's okay that you can mention it now, Mark. It's not a big deal. But yeah, I think the panel will definitely totally agree with you.
Yes.
It's inevitable. So Mark, we'll answer the question in general, but then I'll insert it in next week's comments, whether you're on either show or both next week. How's that, Mark? And then we can go into more details. What I want to do right now is change the direction to a different sport. And we're going to go to the Four Nations face-off. Yes, Josh, every now and then if we strike a topic out of this sport, 1-0 USA over Sweden. Thanks, Josh. Keep tuning in. But I'm going to take this thing to a different level. When I had Rod Peterson on Thursday night, I asked him about the question on the Sports Exchange. He says that USA has the better players, but Canada has a better team. Well, Rod, there's a lot of things you can eat, and that'll be one thing, and we'll be addressing it on this week's Thursday edition of the Sports Exchange. Rod, I think you might want to eat your words at least after Saturday, because U.S. came away with a 3-1 victory over the Canadians on Saturday night in Montreal. So with that said, Eric, what are your thoughts about what we're seeing with the Four Nations tournament?
I think it's fun because you get four of the greatest countries to play hockey against each other. USA, which they got a lot of. They got hockey is great all over this country, including the South. I think that's due in part to Wayne Gretzky. Heck, where they don't even get snow in Florida, they won themselves a Stanley Cup. Obviously Wayne Gretzky popularized hockey in California. But I think it's great. I think it's something fun to watch outside of the Olympics. I know the Olympics used to be that big thing where where the world's greatest teams would come together, and whether they were good or not, you'd see them face off against each other. I just think it's a nice bonus. It's kind of I think hockey kind of stole from the World Baseball Classic a little bit, where the World Baseball Classic will have teams from all over the globe kind of come together and play baseball. But just about a lot of countries, most countries have some sort of hockey going on for them. And I think it's a great way for the entire world to kind of relate to each other, because not every country plays baseball, but most countries have hockey.
Yeah, but let me tell you something. To hockey's defense, I will say this. When you look at the NBA All-Star game, which is a joke, and let alone the NFL, well, that too, and the NFL eliminated the Pro Bowl and reduced it to flag football and a skills competition, I have never seen a bunch of guys go out there and play so hard, and the intensity that these guys play at. Hockey players are the most underpaid athletes on the planet, and with all due respect, I don't know how Josh Odor feels about this one, Josh, I know you're an avid Panthers fan, but Dylan Larkin got 2 points in that victory over Canada, so you might want to become a fan of Dylan Larkin. But Trent, give me your thoughts about this Four Nations face-off.
I'm thrilled with it, man. This has been the best hockey in the world that we've ever seen. This is the best of the best. 4 of the 5 nations of all the players in the league, now that Russia's like fully in and integrated into the U.S. league and the NHL, it's amazing. I mean, and so when you think about the 4 countries represented, obviously all 4 of these are fabulous. I would have loved to have seen a Russian team in here as a 5th option. But with the Olympics coming next year, these kids, these I shouldn't say kids, these players don't get to play together much. And so even getting a week next summer, because the Olympics will be next February, I think. And so it'll be again in the middle of the All-Star break. This is going to be a break that the NHL is going to take for the Olympics next year. This is a great way to spend an All-Star week in this Four Nations. I mean, for anybody who is a hockey aficionado, I mean, the speed of these games has never been seen at the likes of this. This is just insane. And hats off to Kreider tonight, man. Kreider just goes active and he scores a goal in the first 40 seconds of this game. So, hats off to a guy who's been waiting in the wings, ready to go, chomping at the bit, and making a direct impact straight out of the gate. So, first time over the board. I love that, man. I think it's just exciting stuff. And if you're a hockey fan and enthusiast, and you watch that, and you can't get excited about Four Nations, you don't have a pulse.
All right, Mark. Go ahead, Eric. Before we go, turn over to Mark.
Well,
I love this guy, Eric.
I think the great thing about it too is it's competition. I mean, back in the day when the Olympics were more amateurized, now they use professional athletes nowadays. What they used to do was they would have amateurs kind of, particularly with Team USA, they would play exhibition games to kind of get acclimated with each other. I think the movie Miracle does a good job at showing that. But now obviously with them using professional athletes, you take that part of it out because these guys are playing during the season and they don't really have time to practice or really get acclimated. It's great to kind of use this kind of as I guess you could call it an Olympic training camp per se, to an extent, but it's a great way to just, for guys to play together and kind of, I think that come the Olympics next year, the hockey is going to have better quality than it ever has before.
All right, Mark, it's your turn. Finally, patience, beautiful thing.
I think it's amazing. The reason the USA beat the hell out of Canada is because they really tweaked them at the very beginning of that game, and there was no giving up. The Tkachuk boys could have played for Canada, and they said no, they'd never do it. They would never do it, which said, they're the modern day Hanson brothers, and that's awesome. I mean, I love watching Matthew and Brady play. They come out and they play with passion. And that's the biggest thing you're seeing in this tournament is passion. At one point today, I watched the 1 o'clock game. Obviously, I'll watch a second game later if it's not ugly by that time. But, Finland was down, I think it was 3-0. And you looked at their bench, and their bench didn't have a look of being dejected. Their bench was like, we're going to go out there, kick somebody's ass, and we're going to score some goals, and we're not going to leave up. At the end of the day, what was the final score? 5-3, 4-3, something like that?
5-3. 5-3.
Yeah.
It was 4-3. They scored 3 goals in a minute and a half.
So they're playing for their country, and a lot of these teams has something to play for from that perspective, like Finland and Sweden. But for the U.S. and Canada, Canada always being their main sport, the USA basically an up-and-comer based on the numbers in the draft, the guys getting drafted. It's changed in the USA. If they ever figured out a way to market that game so that everybody would get on board with it, because it's got every element you want. It's got speed, it's got contact, it's got a high level of skill. At the end of the day, I just think the whole tournament is wonderful. So next year is the Olympic year, and in 28 they're doing the World Cup of Hockey again. I would not be shocked if in between in 27, based on the success of this, that they don't do another tournament like this in 27. They know their all-star game is just trash. I just think that they'll move it to different places. Maybe they'll move it to Toronto and Buffalo since they're so close to each other. But at the end of the day, you got to keep riding this wave. This is what's going to get people tuning in, not watching 185 to 172 basketball game or anything like that. That's not what it's about.
All right, let me mention this, and I want to go to a couple of comments D. Lowe's made, so hang with me. First of all, what I like what you said, the barber, okay, the first 9 seconds, 3 fights, seriously, it doesn't get any better than it. 3 fights in 9 seconds.
Country pride.
And the Kachuk brothers were a part of 2 of them. Unbelievable. Where's this intensity in the NBA? Really? Seriously? All they do is play like a bunch of patty cake bakers, man. Sissies is what they do. Hockey players aren't sissies. The NBA guys are. That's why the league is going down the drain. All right, let me go to a comment that D-Lowe's made. And you know what? I'm putting this one up. All right. Will anyone from the South Florida Tribune be covering the Winter Olympics from Italy? And then, you know what? Here's another one. Scott, maybe a good time for your trip to Europe. Well, maybe D-Lowe's, the only thing is maybe it'd be a good time for my second trip to Europe, okay? Because I'm planning to get the first one out of the way. D-Lowe's, the man. Congratulations, by the way, on his first child. Love the guy. At least now he'll have that chance to experience fatherhood. So on behalf of your friends over at 186 Baseball Talk, Sports Exchange, and the rest of our program, congratulations, D-Lowe's. I hope you have a wonderful time grooming this little baby that you have. Great stuff. You know what? I love comments like that because I've never been to a Winter Olympics. I've been to the Summer Olympics and in LA. So I think it was kind of interesting when D-Lowe's brings it up. You're welcome, D-Lowe's. That was dynamite, as Jimmy Walker would say, but I don't have the vocal cords to say it that loud. So great stuff. It's something. What you're going to have to do, D-Lowe's, is remind me 250 million times on this topic, just like Josh and the guys reminded me, we want Serene Sunday. We got one up, by the way, from Hammond, Louisiana, where I was at the home of the Southeastern Louisiana Lions. Great stuff, D-Lo, Josh Odor, all these guys motivating this extra stuff. But before we go on to the next topic, we have a station break, and we know who's going to deliver it.
You are listening to the South Florida Tribune YouTube channel. If you see that red subscribe button, hit it, like, and share it with all your friends and family. Monday nights, we talk baseball. Tuesday nights, we talk football. Wednesdays, you never know what we're going to be talking about. Thursdays and now we're going to be on the second edition of the Sports Exchange, baseball and hockey, and then fire up. You never know what we're going to be talking about on that show either, so stay tuned. If you like to listen to podcasts, you can find us wherever you get your podcast. You can also, their South Florida Tribune Publishing Company published a book, Lessons from the Microphone, Tuning into the Enduring Wisdom of Visionary Leaders. It is written by your host, Scott, the Motor City Mad Mouth Morganroth. It's available Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kindle, Google, and Apple Books. There's also a link on our website, www.southfloridatribune.com, where there is a merchandise store and a plethora of other great information. If you want to be a guest or have show ideas, email us at southfloridatribune@gmail.com. If you want to advertise or sponsor this show or any of our shows, call Scott 954-304-4941. If you missed any of that information, it's scrolling on the bottom, or just hit the rewind button if you're listening to us audio-wise. Back to the program.
Thank you very much, Candy. You want Joshua Door? You're right. We want Serene Sunday, and we get it. Put that up there, Candy. Indeed, he did get it, and there'll be more down the road. But that was the first a great opportunity to get that one out there. All right, we'll continue on the baseball theme because we have a lot of other news. The Dodgers officially signed Clayton Kershaw to a 1-year, $7.5 million contract. All right, Trent, what are your thoughts about that contract?
Hey, man, I mean, first of all, again, we're betting on potential. What we just learned about this deal is $7.5 million is the new flyer price. Hey, I'm going to take a flyer on this guy and see if we might get something out of it. And like flyers used to be like $500,000 or $7.5 million as a flyer. Like, I mean, a lot of respect for Clayton Kershaw because of what he's done in the past. I don't want to discount that, but wow, that is a big number. He's obviously younger than I recall. Who's our guy with retired with the Padres, longtime Cubby pitcher at Brave, Maddox.
Oh,
Maddox. Maddox at the end, 40 years old, $10 million deal, but no injuries. A guy who threw, 36 starts a year. I mean, you had a lot of track record to go on that. This is an absolute flyer of can we get a few games out of him? And $7.5 million is the price tag. That is amazing to me.
Okay, Barber.
Where does he slot in this rotation? Let's be honest here.
4 or 5.
If Ohtani's good to go, and Sasaki, where does he slot in? That's all I say. If you're going to pay $7.5 million to him, I think part of that is because of his loyalty to this team for all these years. I think they want to bring him along for one last ride, based on the fact that they owe billions of over $1 billion to players down the road, and they anticipate, winning the World Series again. But I mean, to me, that's insane to pay him that kind of money for a 1-year deal, especially when he doesn't have a true role, in my opinion.
Well, we'll just chalk it up to inflation. Okay, go ahead, Eric.
I mean, let's be honest. They're just signing him because they want the milestones out of the way. At milestones out of the way, in the sense, so he can go and retire. Because the guy's falling apart as it is. I mean, no disrespect to him, he's one of the best pitchers in a generation of my generation, no doubt. Multiple Cy Young awards and All-Star games and the like. Obviously, he could never pitch in the peak. He was the biggest choke job in the postseason. But that's besides the point. I think, obviously they're just doing it because they want him to retire as a Dodger. They want him to complete those milestones as a Dodger. So they were finding ways to lure him back. I mean, he'll get his starts. They want him to complete the milestones, and then probably next year, if the milestones are complete, he'll walk away, because obviously the only team that was really going to sign him was the Dodgers, because the guy's body is starting to really give out on him.
All right. Well, what I like about the Kershaw signing, at least you're going to see one thing: a man played his entire organization with one team. I'll give him that much. Nowadays in free agency, you don't see a lot of that. Back to the chat room. Eddie Prather, I wouldn't let Ohtani pitch with his history of Tommy John surgery. You wouldn't get no disagreement on me, Eddie. In fact, you're right on target, my friend. Thanks a lot for the great comment.
I think they're going to wait for the postseason to have him pitch, if I'm being honest.
Okay, but that's okay. But I think that Eddie Prather is on point. And then Robert Wardell, he could end up in the bullpen towards the end of the season. You know something, Robert? I could definitely see him being in the bullpen, get 2, 3, 4 strong innings. You can make him as a tool there. I know they've added some pitching rotation. So Robert, we'll put that one up too. Candy and Robert Wardell, he can end up in the bullpen towards the end of the season. I don't see that out of the picture at all by any stretch. Great comments from everybody. Keep it up. All right. Now I know one thing that
Motor City, hold on. One thing I would say about this thing, and I don't understand the business side of this, is that out of same respect for Clayton, who is, as we've all said, is a very highly respected, long-time gamer. What's wrong with giving the guy $3 million and throwing, 10 $1 million incentives at him? Like, if you do this, then that. I mean, it's not like they're not going to give the guy a chance to succeed if he's ready to go. So, I could see the guy contributing at a $12 or $13 million level, but it would be earned. Whatever happened to business being earned? That's what I'd like to see.
Well, here's the thing. The Dodgers are printing out money, so I don't. Trent, I know where you're coming from. Excuse me. So you're 100% right. But the Dodgers are printing out money. So what's another $7.5 million?
Yeah.
Who cares?
How
much are they paying to all these new guys they're bringing in? But Trent, you're 100% on point. I agree with you. But that's just my take for whatever.
Because the Dodgers are the because the Dodgers are the equivalent of what Jordan Belfort was when he was the Wolf of Wall Street. They can just throw money into the water, no big deal.
Does that hurt your feelings that the Yankees aren't number one anymore like that, dude? Are you all hurt now because the Yankees just used to pour money like it was nothing and have $100 million on the disabled list, and now there's a new spender in town, and it's the Dodgers.
Not really.
Doesn't hurt your feelings?
Spending doesn't equate to championships. Before last year, the Dodgers kept on getting knocked out of the NLDS, much to the entire baseball world's delight. So you can go ahead and defer as many contracts as you want, but there's this one thing, and you should know this, Trent, that unfortunately the players who ultimately go out on the field and have the final say on what happens. So you can go ahead and put yourself a championship team on a sheet of paper and you could spend upwards of more money than anyone will ever see in their lifetime, and you still won't win a championship. That is the beauty of this game, which is the players who on all teams ultimately have the final say. If there's a definition of that from this last season, we should look at the Detroit Tigers.
Okay, great stuff. You know what? We're going to go on to a topic that Eric loves so much. His name is Pete Alonso. So all we're going to talk about, Mr. Alonso, are his rejected contracts. My goodness, seriously, these three are unbelievable. And you know what? When I get done mentioning them, Mr. Cat, or as Trent would say, Catsy, okay, that's the door. And you guys, you want to come up with a new name for Eric? They'll probably accept it or at least acknowledge it. But all right, Catsy, thanks to Mr. Clark. Okay. Pete Alonso rejected contract, 7 years, $150 million. My goodness, I hope you guys have stats of what his new ones are. If not, Candy will come up with them. Excuse me. 3 years, so 7 years, $158 million. 3 years, $90 million, or 3 years, $68 to $70 million. The numbers were going down. Candy, do you have any updates about what Pete Alonso's current contract is? Then we're going to turn over to Catsy. And while she's looking that up,
I'm getting it.
She's getting it right now. Then Catsy's going to take over and spin it around the horn.
Oh, let's see.
There we go. Our cracker Chargers and our producer, Candy Ebling.
Trying to get it. Here we go. Negotiations. I'm still looking it up. You keep talking.
All right. Well, while we do that, Candy's looking up some programming notes that I want to mention while we have that moment today. We obviously had a great show with Cliff Neal. We're going to have another good show on Wednesday night when I have Rachel Galvin, an actress who lives in South Florida. She's going to be on joining me before Sports Exchange. That'll be around 8:00 p.m. Eastern time. One thing about the South Florida Tribune Broadcasting Network is we're not afraid to talk to people outside of sports. And one thing we don't want to do is be a one-trick pony, and we're not going to do that. So Rachel's going to be on with me at 8. So I hope everybody can join us. And also on Saturday morning, the former External Bum Show has been replaced, and I'm in charge of it for Sports Wrap. Ralph Williams and I host it along with Leo Haggerty and Pensman. So we'll have an opportunity to go out there and proceed from there. All right, Robert Wardell beat you to the punch. 2 years.
Alonso worked out a 2-year, $54 million deal with an opt-out with Cohen and David Stearns. He worked it out.
Great stuff, Robert. Appreciate you and Candy. Robert, put it in the chat room. Now Candy's going to advertise it in the chat room. With that said, Robert, well done, my friend. We appreciate you coming on the show and let alone providing us some information so that guys like Catsy can talk about it. All right, Catsy, now that Pete Alonso's your best friend, maybe not, but the floor is yours on what you think of Mr. Alonso.
I think he has I think his head is less than 5 cents, judging by his free agency. Because he kept on. Here's the thing. Apparently, he doesn't even know when his leverage is leading him. I mean, I just can't think of a guy who defines who I can't think of a guy who in baseball who's more of a who's the sheer definition of a dumb jock than Pete Alonso. He's, again, he thought he could. The first base is no longer valued what it once was. Gone are the Albert Pujols and Prince Fielders, where those guys would mash all over hill and dale, and then sign like what was then like 145, 150 million dollar contracts, if not more, which money was different in baseball, which was a lot of money back then. But here's the thing: first base, you can convert guys very easily. We're seeing guys who never really played the position, like Bryce Harper, for example, play the position. You don't need to be just if you can only play first base, you have a problem. It's nowadays teams are building their rosters around positional flexibility, and if they can help it, switch hitters. If you're only a first baseman, you're only going to be there for so long, because Pete Alonso is, Pete Alonso only does one thing well, which is he's either a home run or bust kind of guy, a 3 outcome hitter. And he's really just he's really just a designated hitter masquerading as a first baseman because teams don't, because given his age, teams don't want to want him clogging up a designated hitter spot at his age when he's capable of going out and playing the field, albeit not very well. But the thing with Alonso is Alonso kept thinking he could get more and more and kept turning down offers to the point where teams were unwilling to meet that price, and they went other directions. They found other first basemen. Like the Astros would have been perfect for him. The right-handed friendly ballpark. He's got the Crawford boxes at his disposal. But here's the thing. Because of his asking price was too high, Houston said, screw you, and went out and got Christian Walker. And which was for a much cheaper price. And unlike Alonso, Christian Walker can play Gold Glove caliber defense as well as hit home runs, which he's very good at. Even though he's 34, I still think the guy has some gas left in the tank. But here's the thing. Pete Alonso just doesn't want to accept that he's just a one-trick pony. He's closer to Rob Deere than he ever will be Albert Pujols.
You know what, Eric? I was thinking about Rob Deere. That's why Catsy is featured on this show. I wrote down Rob Deere as a hashtag, and Candy Epling knows about Rob Deere. But before she gets a comment on this, back to the chat room. Let's talk about Robert Wardell. I can see why Mariners did not sign him. Unbelievable cash.
He wasn't going to sign. He wasn't going to sign there anyway because that's a hitter.
That's not the point. You mentioned Rob Deere. Don't interrupt me because that was a good. Quit while you're ahead. All right. Yeah. I can see why Mariners did not sign him. Alonso didn't want to play in Toronto. Wouldn't play in Toronto either. Although I got to tell you, Eddie, Toronto's a great sports town. Pete saying his bridge contract to get next contract. I think he thinks he can still get long term. Well, we'll see, but we won't know for at least a year, depending on what his numbers are. I heard it was Boris that rejected those contracts. It's possible. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I'm not going to say that, but go ahead, Eric, and then we're going to turn over to these other guys.
I mean, of course, it's going to come out saying Boris rejected, but here's the thing. The player ultimately makes the decision. Boris can whisper in his ear saying, hey, I think you can get more. I think you can get more. It's ultimately the player that does it. The agent works for the player.
Okay, fair enough. Okay. That's fair enough. Rob Deere, though, you really hit grand slam.
That was a blast from the past right there.
Yeah,
that was
there you go. All right.
Wow.
We'll transition over to Trent. Go ahead.
I don't know. I'd love to see. I had Rob Deere in Detroit when I was back in the day, and never have I seen a guy rip his batting gloves off at the adhesive stretch rubber at the top, end to end, right down the fingertips, man, right on the seam. That guy was something strong, man. And so I'll tell you, that's a great reference point with this guy. And man, as I hear Alonso, who he's been a favorite at the home run derby. He's almost a vaudeville act, man. And it's getting to this point where I'm reminded of the late great Bob Uecker. I mean, this guy's getting no respect, man. He's a Rodney Dangerfield, man. Like it's becoming almost comical. And I do fear that he listened or did not listen to his counsel. I don't know what he did there, but I think he's at the point of no return. I do not think he's ever getting the money he was hoping for now. And it's, you know, he's going to have to go prove it. Now it's no more, are you a trick guy? He's going to have to go probably do some 1-year contract and just show out like none other ever has and prove to be the most valuable. And then maybe he's going to go back in and go get it again, or maybe be a trade deadline guy and get some big deal in the middle of helping somebody. But he's going to have to prove that out and take advantage of a situation, in my opinion.
Okay, let's go to Eddie Prather. I like this comment, Eddie. Great stuff. Keep up the good work. Scott, I'm talking about as a franchise, Blue Jays are a terrible franchise. Where his point's well taken is the Blue Jays have not won. They won back-to-back World Series in the 90s, but haven't done anything since. So point well taken. I'm with you all the way. Candy and I had an opportunity to go up to Toronto, and I hung out with my buddy Don Mattingly up there, who's now the bench coach for the Toronto Blue Jays. But, you know, he's got a good point. But every time Eddie Prather puts something in the chat room, it's a you must put up on the screen. And Eddie, we appreciate you very much, big time. Let alone. And the manager back then was Cito Gaston, who did some unbelievable things for minorities in terms of winning championships. So point well taken, Eddie. Yeah, right. He won. Well, yeah, that's right. He had 2 stints, didn't he? Okay. Turn over to Mark. Go ahead.
I was starting to talk about the economics of the game and how they're coming down the road. I think a guy like Pete Alonso is going to be affected by the economics of the game. Mm-hmm. And inevitably, they're going to have to pay these guys accordingly and not overpay somebody because of their name, because of their past numbers or anything like that. You hit the nail on the head, somebody, by saying he's a one-trick pony. I believe he was part of the reason the Mets were in the shitter last year, excuse my French, to start the season. And then he kind of got hot towards the end of the season to help them increase their chance. But, you know, he wasn't playing at the level he had been. I'm with whoever said Boris had a lot to do with that. A lot of people don't want anything to do with a Boris client.
All right, let's go back to Eddie Prather again. Eric, I'll go back to you. Don Mattingly was the best first baseman in the 1980s. The only regret is he should be in the Baseball Hall of Fame. Exclamation point, my point said. Eric, go ahead.
Well, here's the thing, too, about Pete Alonso. I mean, the biggest problem with him, regardless of what he did last year, obviously 34. Obviously, I'd tolerate 170 plus strikeouts if he was hitting more than 34 home runs. Where if he was hitting like 45 and 50 home runs, I'll put up with it. But 34, and then your OPS has been dropping. It has been dropping for the past 3 or 4 years. You know, you're not going to get that kind of money. You're a player that's starting to look like. I mean, although it might not appear that way, you're starting to look like you're on the wrong end of 30. You're starting to look arguably, maybe possibly worse than Alex Bregman, because Alex Bregman can at least play defense, and Pete Alonso really, even though he made the All-Star team last year, he really wasn't an All-Star. That really should have gone to Christian Walker. The problem was MLB wanted him to do the home run derby, but Prima Donna Pete wind his way into the game, and that's how he got in, because otherwise he refused to do the home run derby. So Prima Donna Pete kind of got in there. And besides, I don't want a guy who's a home runner bust kind of guy in my lineup. It's annoying, especially because the guy strikes out so much. And I think among active first basemen, I think he's somewhere in the top in errors committed. So why would I want a one-dimensional player where the guy's either going to strike out or hit a home run where I have no idea what I'm getting, and the guy is an absolute bum out in the field? And not only that, the guy whines like a baby because he's not an all-star, but won't do the home run derby. But the league wants him to do the home run derby, and he refuses to do it unless he gets in the All-Star game. Gosh, he's worse than Barry Bonds at times.
All right, we'll go to one more comment in the chat room, one more topic to get to. Eddie Prather again. The only good thing about getting Paul Goldschmidt is he's only on a 1-year contract.
I mean, there will be first baseman available. There will be first baseman available, I promise you.
Okay, that's all right.
I'm still stuck on Prima Donna Pete, man. I think that's going to be sticky.
Prima Donna Pete, boy, Clark.
I called him swinging a miss, Pete, in an article I wrote.
Okay, Robert Wardell, laugh out loud, would be one of the best players on a lot of teams with his numbers. Okay, well, we'll leave that out there.
I'm sure 34 home runs and 170 strikeouts. Yeah, right.
The Pirates would take that in a heartbeat.
All right, good stuff. Got to get
Pirates have
everybody.
a lot of things in a heartbeat. They already have Jack. They already have a guy like. They have a guy like the Pirates already have a guy like that in Jack Sawicki, who's a poor man's Pete Alonso.
Vlad Jr. All right, guys, what do you think about him in Toronto for the long haul?
Not going to happen. Not going to happen.
Fair enough.
I see the Mets did the deal with Pete Alonso because thinking that Pete would opt out to go get Vlad Jr. I can guarantee you Pete Alonso will not be a Met for life because Vlad is out there and Vlad is a much better player. Pete Alonso and Cohen, oh boy, he probably has cash registers in his closet, and he will. I can see him saying, I can see it now. He's probably begging. Him and Stearns are probably begging for Pete Alonso to opt out to the point where they can say, "Screw you, Pete. We're getting Vlad, the better first baseman, and he actually can play some defense."
Yeah, Eddie, I don't see Vlad Jr. As a Yankee. I don't know why for some reason, but it's possible. We'll see whether or not Hal Steinbrenner will actually dig into his checkbook to get him. I wouldn't say it's impossible. I don't know for sure. Go ahead, Eric. You like to talk about the Yankees.
I don't see it. It's not because of what he said, because at the end of the day, if you pay a player, they will come. You can pay them to come down to the beautiful beaches of South Florida, or you can if you pay them enough, they will come to the far reaches of Yemen. But the thing is, the Yankees have Ben Rice, who they're pretty high on, waiting in the wings, and they also waiting in the wings over there. And he's done some, even though he's just learning first base, last season he did some good things at the position while Anthony Rizzo was hurt. Obviously he hit that rookie slump, but it's worth noting that he did do some good things. So you have a controllable talent there. I mean, would I be okay if Vlad came? Yeah, I would, but I just don't see it happening. Not with the situation they have now. They just have Goldschmidt kind of hold it as a placeholder right now until Ben Rice is fully ready to go.
All right, back to the chat room. I want to get these comments, but okay, Mark, I'll let you comment on them. The Yankees can't afford to fail to land Vlad Jr. Okay, and then I've been wanting the Mariners, but no one wants to come here. They can't hit. Okay, bleep and Rice. Okay, we'll put them up there. No big deal. All right, Mark, go ahead.
I was just going to say, could you see Vlad going to somewhere like St. Louis or Chicago, the Cubs, inevitably, who are trying to rebuild that?
They have Michael Busch. They have Michael Busch playing first base, who's proven to be a decent player over there. And then St. Louis, DeWitt won't spend that kind of money. He's not going to do it. No. Okay. Sure, I'm sorry to pour cold water in St. Louis, but he's not going to do it. They're just not. They're also going through an organizational reset right now where they're kind of more leading toward they're rebuilding. And I think as a free agent, you want to go to a winner. I mean, the Mets are going to have a need at first base if Pete Alonso opts out. That's a possibility. I know Toronto's trying, but let's be honest, Toronto, with their front office is more dysfunctional than the Kardashians.
I don't know how I top those comments, but I'll let Trent Clark try.
Yeah, I'm not going to try to top that. I do not see Vladdy being a long-term Toronto Blue Jay. I know he likes the city. I know he's a fan favorite. I know they've treated him well, but he ultimately, like every other player, especially who competes, wants to play for a winner. His dad battled this most of his career as an expo, and he's the best player on a real below average team.
Right.
And man, ultimately it's about championships. It's about competing for titles, and best in the world want to go up against the best. This is why Four Nations is so exciting, right? Best in the world wants to go see how they stack up. And so he's gonna get that itch, and he's gonna go to a competitor, and it's probably gonna be 1 year at the time where it's gonna run into the trade deadline, and then he's gonna have the free agency bounce for probably the end of his last 7-8 years. Whatever he's gonna do, it's gonna be, I think, bounce around. But he is not a long-term player in Toronto.
All right, I'm gonna put this.
I could see Texas signing him. I really can.
Interesting.
Yeah, that one intrigues me. All right, let's put a couple more praisers up.
Freddie Freeman.
Rice has no bat. I don't care about defense or a first base. Okay, who do the Dodgers have?
Freddie Freeman.
Yeah, Freddie Freeman. There's your answer. All right, final topic of the night. Anthony Rendon signed a 7-year, $245 million deal with the LA Angels before the 2020 season. Guess what about that contract? Artie Moreno didn't take any insurance out on it. So, all right, I know Aaron's laughing. Go ahead. Take the lead on this.
Why am I not shocked? The guy is, I mean, Artie Moreno has been for a little while there, was actually trying to sell the team. I'm sure upon that contract, he's staring at the mirror, banging on his dresser, saying it's not worth it. But he's it's, you know, I thought it was the dumbest thing he could have done by not adding insurance to it, because he saw what happened the first time around. As soon as it happens, you go and get insurance. I would expect better from him, but obviously billionaires can be dumb too. And they, but the thing is, he thought Anthony Rendon would come around, especially that long-term contract, and he hasn't. The guy is I've starting to call him now Anthony Injury Prone Rendon, because he truly is an injury waiting to happen. I just think, and he didn't help his cause by saying he didn't help his cause by going on TV or a podcast saying, saying something to the effect was he's just cashing in. Well, Artie Moreno not getting insurance on it is not a surprise, given that this guy tried to go all in to keep Ohtani and it failed badly. But once again, this is the great Artie Moreno. He should have woken up in the morning and saying injury prone Rendon and gotten some insurance, but he didn't. There's a reason the Angels are in the position they are now, stuck with a bunch of bad contracts, and the fact that they're either in last place or next to last place in the AL West.
All right, Trent, you work for the Angels.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, listen, as a former Angel and part of the heyday, man, I mean, obviously it's hard to watch, right? To see a team that hasn't finished above 500 in like 9 years now. I mean, It's staggering. I think there's accountability in this game, and Artie came in as a very wise business person, the first Latin American or Latino owner. Exciting times to get a guy who was so astute in his business acumen. But this is a cautionary tale. Like, because you're good at one thing doesn't mean you're good at selling signs on the side of the road and park benches. And that's awesome, man. I mean, he was an amazing media mogul on all these advertisings, but this is a different deal. And because you're good at one thing doesn't make you good at another. And this has not been a huge success. Now, at the end of the day, I mean, maybe this plays out as a great business venture for Artie Moreno, but with the equity that all these teams have received over the years, I'm sure he's going to come out fine. So the disappointing thing is the team, the fans, man, just positioned for winning. We set it up in like 2000, 2001, and we positioned it to win for like the next 6-7 years. And then you go away from the fundamentals of winning and look where you're at. I mean, now it's been what, 2 decades since then? 2 decades. That's crazy.
Go ahead, Aaron.
Well, yeah, I mean, during that time, especially, after 2002, I mean, yeah, they didn't win a championship again, but the Angels were still one of the most consistent teams in baseball, where you could count on them winning the AL West. At the time, you could count on them winning the AL West, save for the Oakland A's every so often. So winning the AL West that year. And also during that time too, there was stability within that franchise. You had one hell of a coaching staff with Bud Black, Joe Madden, Mike Scioscia, and you, of course, obviously.
As you say, yeah. I mean, it's nice that you put those other guys. You could have thrown me in somewhere between, Madden and Bud Black or something, right?
That's a hell of a managerial tree, because both of them have obviously gone on and managed different teams. And I know Madden's broke a curse and also led another team to a World Series as well. And but yeah, I mean, they were a consistent team. They were competitive. They had players who were bought into like the team concept, guys like David Eckenstein, Adam Kennedy, Troy Gloss, and a heck of a pitching staff with John Lackey. But the thing is, they went away from the playbook. And although I give Artie Moreno credit for trying, especially he hasn't gone without trying. So as much as we like to make fun of Artie Moreno, and put him up on a pinup board at the bar. He has tried. I mean, let's not get too hard on him because he's not here to defend himself.
Did you just drop a pin the tail on Artie? Did you just drop that, man?
A pinup bar. You know what? You know on the dartboard how you put a guy on there that you just don't like, and you want to.
No, I was thinking of the kids game where you put the tail on the ass. Is what I'm saying here.
I was yes. I would. I mean, I think he's definitely looked like one over the past umpteen number of years. But
I back Catsy's. I'll back Catsy's one call about Artie Moreno. He's not sat on his hands and not spent. So the people of Southern California can't sit there and go, well, we never got any good free agents. He spent money on very good players, and for whatever reason, it didn't work out. I would go back to, we went away from the fundamentals there, and you just can't. Nobody wins with 2 all-stars and then a bunch of players that you're trying to mix in. You got to be fundamentally sound.
You got.
Let me just say one thing, okay, Eric. Since I'm going to have a voice at the end of this show because you keep bringing up Mike Scioscia and Joe Madden, I'm not in danger of losing my voice on here when you keep mentioning these guys that I was going to do. So keep it up, Eric. Good stuff. Proud of you, kid.
Yep. I think, because, I mean, as much as bad as Angels fans have it right now, just, it's an awful time to be an Angels fan. You cannot accuse Artie Moreno of not trying. The guy has tried and tried and tried to put a winning product on the field. Has it been successful? No, but let's be thankful. You can have a cheap ass like Bob Nutting not do a damn thing for your team, and your team can go out there every day and slob and look like a complete pile of crap from about April until September. I mean, yes, it's bad in Anaheim, but hey, you cannot say that Artie Moreno doesn't want to win.
All right, Mark, you have the final word on this.
You should have known Rendon was going to go in the tank after he won that World Series with Washington, and he ran out of there for the money. Like he didn't even sit on his hands. You saw the writing on the wall with that. They knew that they were going to try and change ownership, and they moved on some guys. But man, that dude, I don't think the names were done being etched into the World Series trophy, and he was gone. Yeah. He went for the cash. I don't know how he was even felt about down in D.C. Like he wasn't a marquee guy there. They hung their hat more on Zimmerman, Soto at the time. So from my perspective, after hearing what he said last year before the season started, I was like, dude, go away. Go ahead.
All right. The only thing I'm going to say,
I wouldn't say.
Go ahead, Eric.
Let me say one thing on these contracts. Can I say something, Cassie? One thing I'd love to see Motor City Mad Mouth on this. I'd love to talk about the 10 contracts that we could name the 10 worst of all time, because this Rendon one might be one, and this Bregman thing might work out the same. If I'm listening to Catsy and I'm following this and I'm listening to my advisors, right? Barber, all these guys, I'm thinking, man, this might be the worst $120 million a team ever spent. And we're all going to see it play out. That's fine. We'll see what happens. But now we do have some 5-year histories, 10-year histories on contracts. We should take a look at some of the 10 worst of all time where people just gave up mad cash and got zero value for it.
I'll say this much. Trent and I've already wrote notes. We'll go ahead and I'll look that up, and if we get enough of it, could be very well on next week's.
Let's doge these baseball contracts.
Well, we will. Okay, I already wrote it down, man. I mean, I don't know. I'm the only one that can read my lousy penmanship. Before I get to Eric for this moment, I don't think that the Washington Nationals are worried about the one that got away. They may be saying good riddance. So, all right, we'll go ahead and go back to Eric.
Well, they picked Strasburg, and that didn't actually work. That didn't work out really either. So I think either way they were in a lose-lose situation. But I will say this about. I'm going back to what the Barber said about Anthony Rendon. Or Anthony Rendon, before he left for the Angels and became a complete train wreck out there, was actually a very good player for the Nationals. He had 2 100 RBI season. They beat the year they won the World Series. He was an All-Star and led the league in the National League in RBIs with 126 to go along with 34 home runs. So he was no scrub. He was a big part of that team that won the World Series. So I wouldn't. So there's a reason that the Angels are willing to dump the money that they did on him because the guy was one of the better players on the Nationals that year. And in the postseason, especially the World Series, the guy was also the year they won the World Series, the guy was an absolute menace in the postseason. He was a big part of that team. So don't tell me they just relied on Soto, Strasburg, and somebody else. No, Rendon was a big part of that parade there.
There's a reason though that they let him walk. There's a reason. If he's that good and they wanted to sink money into him, they could have. They had the money to sink into him. My guess is that he's not very good in the locker room. And his comment, again, let me go back to what I said. What he said last year ruffled more than just feathers in Southern California. Like, as a professional athlete making money like that, you don't say shit like that.
You don't say it.
You know, that's just insane.
You might think it. You don't say it.
Right.
It didn't just affect the locker room there. It affected the league as a whole. And also, I want to say though that the reason the Nationals didn't choose him was because they wanted Strasburg. Strasburg was the ace of that rotation. Was the ace of that rotation at the time. They wanted to lock up the ace because that guy ultimately won the world. Strasburg was the World Series MVP that year. And also, they wanted to lock him up. Now, did it work out? No, because the guy. I don't think although the signs were there, although that was also another monumental screw up there because Strasburg's the signs were there. He had the injury history, and his body ultimately predictably collapsed. And now Washington's been trying to get out of that contract for a very long time.
Well, the only thing I'll say about Steven Strasburg is he does remind me a little bit of Sandy Koufax, that you had all that talent, and unfortunately his career was cut short by injury. Great stuff tonight. You guys are bringing you back for your first act. It excites the daylights out of me about what this group is going to do all year long. Let alone this is our first show of the year. And we talk about some unbelievable participation in the chat room, led by Robert Wardell, Eddie Prather, and Josh and the guys participated a little earlier when we got involved in hockey. So, even though we're a baseball show, I'm open to bringing on other topics if I think there's something I want to do. Go ahead, Eric, as we get ready to wrap this bad boy up.
I want to go back to a comment by Eddie Prather saying that if George was alive, George would spend. First off, he didn't have the luxury tax as tight as a screw as it is now. This was back when you could spend money more freely. George Steinbrenner was never a fan of the luxury tax to begin with, much less what it is back when they first implemented it, much less what it is now. This was the same George Steinbrenner that was so pissed that he waged a public war against Tampa because he didn't want to pay taxes on Steinbrenner Field. So I think it would probably be more. Hal definitely gets the brunt of it because Hal is kind of the guy out in front right now as the managing general partner of the Yankees. But I think George would probably scale it back because he really didn't like the luxury tax. I mean, the Yankees now, they were spending at like 55% of the money they brought in on player salaries. They've only lowered it to about 10% they're just spending just 10% or less of what they used to. Yes, George wanted to win. I think every damn person in New York City, fans and players who go there and root for the team, want to win too. But George Steinbrenner was not a fan. George would have adapted. That's what Hal is doing. He is spending the almost the same amount that George Steinbrenner did. And here's the thing. We're in love with the idea of George Steinbrenner. Like everybody's in love with that idea of an owner, kind of like someone like Steve Cohen. But let's be honest, the owners now don't want another guy like Cohen coming in there. They really don't, because it means the salaries go through the roof, and they're already pissed at Cohen and the Dodgers right now to begin with. And Hank wasn't around long. Hank died not too long after George did. Hal was always supposed to be the guy out in front. Hank would kind of handle the baseball stuff, but Hal would kind of be the guy out in front. He was the guy out in front in 2009 when they brought in Teixeira Burnett and CeCe Sabathia that year, along with Nick Swisher and I think a bunch of other people as well. So the luxury tax was already on George's mind when they first implemented it. and seeing what it is now, you'd be getting more of the same. You're just going by off of what he did during the 80s, back when there was low luxury tax. All he had to do was dip into his coffer and throw money at a guy and throw money at someone like, say, Dave Winfield.
All right, Eddie Prather, just so you know, Candy will be putting this up in a moment. I have a good George Steinbrenner story in Lessons from the Microphone. If you elect to purchase this book, I will find a way to personalize it for you, Eddie. So Candy's going to put that up, put all your comments up. Eddie, you've been top flight tonight, my friend. So I'll go ahead and Candy will put it up there for you. And if you decide to get the book through Amazon, let alone Amazon or Barnes & Noble, you let me know. And once you get that, I will definitely go ahead. Candy's putting up on screen now, Eddie. Lessons from the Microphone, tuning into the enduring wisdom of visionary leaders, that you can get through Amazon and Barnes & Noble. I will personalize it for you, my friend. All right, with that said, great show. I'm always excited about this show. And as I told Trent Clark when we were texting back and forth, it's time for us to get back in the baseball business full time. And we're going to go out. Trent and I and Eric are going to kill this thing. Mark is always going to come on whenever he wants to. He's got an open invite. But now he has a new challenge with myself and George Eichhorn on Thursday for the new revamped Sports Exchange, which will debut a week from Thursday. We will have one more Sports Exchange under the current format on Thursday. Mark will be on it, and we will have a new revamp. With that said, then let everybody have an opportunity. Well, we're going to go to a station break first, Candy, and then everybody can go ahead and see how to get to know each other. Go ahead. Eddie, I'm proud of you, buddy. Keep it up. And another thing, Eddie, if for some reason you ever want to come on this show, you have an open invite to come on the baseball show or any show that you definitely desire, because I'll tell you, your comments would fit in well with any crew that you're on. So you have an open invite, Eddie, and we appreciate your loyalty. God bless, my friend. Go ahead, Candy. Over to you.
You are listening to the South Florida Tribune YouTube channel. If you see the red subscribe button, that means you haven't subscribed yet. Please do so and share us with all your friends and family. Monday nights, we talk baseball. Tuesday nights, we talk football. Wednesday nights on Sports Exchange, you never know. Thursday nights, Sports Exchange, hockey and baseball. And then on Fire Up, again, you never know what we're going to be talking about. So stay tuned to find out. If you like to listen to podcasts, you can find us wherever you get your podcasts. The South Florida Tribune Publishing Company published a book, Lessons from the Microphone, tuning into the enduring wisdom of visionary leaders. It is written by our host, Scott, the Motor City Madmouth Morganroth. It's available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kindle, Google, and Apple Books. There is also a link on our website, www.southfloridatribune.com. And yes, spell all that out. SOUTHFLORIDATRIBUNE.com. There is a plethora of great articles, pictures on there. Go check out the website. We also have a merchandise store as well. I think that's, well, if you want to advertise with us, call Scott 954-304-4941. If you want to be a guest or have show ideas, you can always email us at southfloridatribune@gmail.com. My one last thing, I know you guys are about ready to wrap up. I just want to say the people that were on the flight that crashed in Toronto. Yeah. There's only, what I've heard, there's only been 8 injuries so far. There is one of our friends that is a fellow podcaster was on that plane. He is okay. Glad to hear that. Glad to hear that there weren't any worse injuries on that plane that crashed, a Delta plane in Toronto. Thank you.
All right, Eddie Prather, here's number 1. You're welcome. And number 2, when I'll think about, send us an email at southfloridatribune@gmail.com. And now that I know you have an interest in the NFL draft, I will be more than happy talking about that sometime in April. So, yeah, I would have zero problem putting you on that show. But what I want you to do, Eddie, is send that particular email to my personal email address, scottpm33@gmail.com. And then I'll definitely find a way to get you in, because we'll probably talk about the NFL draft, not only that week, but either the week before or the week after. So, in fact, I believe, Candy, was I invited to a conference call by Daniel Jeremiah? I think it was on Thursday. Is that correct?
Correct. And we did
Okay.
cover the NFL draft last year in Detroit.
Right. Oh.
Eddie, just so you're aware.
Yeah, so Eddie, scottbm33@gmail.com. Just put the reminder in there for us, and I will definitely add you on our coverage for the NFL draft. I'm working on a lot of NFL people. If I could get 2-3 shows out of the NFL draft, Eddie, there's no reason to think that I would be more than happy to give you an open invite to come on to anyone that you want. All right, Mr. Prather, God bless. And again, if you want my book personalized and you want to get it, feel free to get it. If you don't, no big deal. You're gonna get it every time we put it up there because we're gonna keep promoting it. With that said, let's go ahead and go around the horn. Okay, Eric Katz, let everybody know how they can get a hold of you.
You can follow me on my Twitter and X at Sports Team News, or you can follow my blog at bellyotsports.com, where I write about all things baseball. If you think I hate your team, yes, I do.
Okay, Eddie, add me under Scott Morganroth, and you can add me as a friend if you like, and then you can message me. That would be more than fine. Scott Morganroth, MORGANROTH. And just so you know, the guy that's in the picture is Mickey Lolich, 1968 World Series history pitcher. He should be a Hall of Famer. But send me a request, Eddie Prather, on Facebook, and I'll be more than happy to accept it, and we can communicate that way. Mickey Lolich, he should be a Hall of Famer. All right, Mark, go ahead and let everybody know how they can hold you. Also, before you do that, I want to thank Mark Maraday for doing an outstanding job on Twitter, helping me promote all of our content, let alone the fact that he helps out on Facebook from time to time. I met this guy at the Baseball Hall of Fame in person. He's been a loyal part of the team. And one thing I could get about Maraday is I can put him on any show, and he goes out there and does an outstanding job. So he's my MVP. I can slide him around anywhere he wants. I guarantee one thing about Maraday, he'll give me his best shot, and he always does. That's why he's a very important contributor to the South Florida Tribune Broadcasting Network. Now that I built you up, now you can build yourself up.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Hey, you can find the Original Sports Podcast with Mark Maraday anywhere you subscribe to social media. We air our shows on Tuesday night and Thursday night now. We have a new show called Terrible Talk. If you're a Steeler fan or you want to just hear us rip down the Steelers, apparently Trent thinks I am a anti-Tomlin person, and he's 100% correct. No, we talk Terrible Talk, breaking it all down with the Steelers with our OSP show. We have a whole lot of stuff going on there. We have some guests coming on. Tomorrow night's show has Steve Mears, the voice of the Columbus Blue Jackets. Next week we have Greg Brown, the voice of the Pittsburgh Pirates. And the week after that, I have Jack McDowell, former Major League pitcher from the Chicago White Sox. So we just have a whole lot of stuff going on with our show too.
Impressive
Cleveland
lineup,
Indians. I coached blackjack in Cleveland.
There you go.
He was a Yankee for a minute too.
Impressive lineup. Jack McDowell. All right, we'll turn it over to Mr. Clark, who coached him. Let everybody know they get a hold of you.
Yeah, congratulations, Mark, on the new show. Exciting for all the Pittsburgh fans out there. I think it's going to be fabulous. For me, you can find me at Trent at leadershipity.com. Leadershipity.com is our coaching site where we make everybody elite. And we'd love to have you check us out there. You can follow me on any socials at either Trent M. Clark or Leadershipity. And my podcast, Winners Find a Way, is a top 2% downloaded. And just came out with a new book, Leading Winning Teams, last fall, released in August with Wiley Publishing. So excited about that, and can't wait to see you down the road. Reach out to me anytime.
All right, Mr. Clark, we need you to go ahead and send us the link to that book so we can Candy will put it on the South Florida Tribune page so people can purchase it there as well. Great job by my crew tonight. I wouldn't expect anything different than this Hall of Fame cast that I have for sure. So meanwhile, great job, great first act for the season, and we have a lot more on their way. So I hope you can follow us, share the broadcast, and bring on more and more people. Everybody, in my opinion, will get acknowledged, and the comments we had tonight in the chat room were really awesome. So on behalf of my co-host, Trent Clark, Mike the Barber, and my rising superstar, Eric Katz, this concludes this edition of 108 Stitches Baseball Talk. We will see you next Monday night at 8 o'clock. So meanwhile, thank you very much for joining us. Winners Find a Way, and I have 3 of them on this show tonight. God bless everybody. See you next Monday night. Have a great week. Bye now.